You burn out when you're 26, and you end up, injured, unhealthy, and with no money to show from the sport. Which is of all things, as a friend and like someone I knew as a young kid, that I'm most proud of, absolutely, is the business and financial side that Steve has just completely nailed since day one. Very, very shrewd businessman.
Again, I can give you props to you, man. You were always like, if you make so much money, if you make $2,000, I still have the emails, I think, probably from 15 years ago, where you were like,
you and me both.
You're getting some sponsorships here. You're making an extra $2,000 a month or $4,000 a month, and put half of that, in the savings account, and just start saving and investing in because that definitely is something that helped me just make sure that I was financially focused and settled as well. Because in bodybuilding, you just want to be all in. It's a very much an all in mentality, and the best are all in on it. But you do need to be able to provide and live the lifestyle of, if you want to be a bodybuilder. And that was why, I made sure I had a solid career as a firefighter. I had a good income, secured income there. And then, before I ever quit that, I was making sure that I had enough, a revenue coming in from all my different streams to make sure I could not do that, to focus more on bodybuilding. So that's one thing I tell people, that, the 19-year-old guys are like, man, I want to be a pro bodybuilder, and I'm just going all in on it. And, I dropped out of school, or I'm not, I'm not working anymore. And I'm like, oh, hold on. Like, just maybe finish school or get a good job. And then, bodybuilding is going to be around. It's just make sure that you get settled and you have security before going all in.
Well, and I think for context, I just want to explain this to, the listeners out there. So if we think about the timeline, as we mentioned, right, you're competing 2004. At what point, so those who don't know, Steve was a full-time firefighter. Was it in Dallas, Steve? I know it was in Texas, but in Dallas. And so at what point in your pro career did you start to scale back on the firefighting?
It was probably about 4 to 5 years ago. About 5 years ago was when I
So about half your career as a pro, you were still working full time.
And I would bet you were making 2, 3, 4, maybe even more times as much money from the sport than you were as a firefighter too. I don't think people realize that. It was like Ronnie said, another day, another quarter, because compared to what he was making. But that, like doing that and staying on to some type of pension or something, like people don't realize that's hard to do, because everything around you, all the flash, all the, the guys blowing every penny they make, that's all around you. And that's what you see. It's hard to stay true to your conviction, but you could follow Steve on Instagram and you can see how he's living now, and you can see how it paid off, beautiful home, badass cars, and then the freedom to not have a 9 to 5 and basically, live life the way he wants. And he's still in his mid-30s.
Yeah, people look at, they look at the success of people and they think it's overnight success, or, but it's a lot of grind and a lot of sacrifice, and just doing things the right way or smart. I mean, yeah, you can have fun and live life. It doesn't mean be a hermit and just don't have a life. But Justin taught me to have a good balance with things. And it was kind of not just like bodybuilding life balance. It was like good balance between, what you did in the gym, what you had with family. I saw Justin as a family man, he had a couple kids, and I seen him expand his family more and more. And then, he had a great family. He just learned, he balanced it out really well. And if you're able to do that, you're able to have success and longevity and really whatever you want to pursue.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think seeing, was it probably Lydia? Definitely, I saw on the front little baby carriage thing facing him doing cardio, right? Like,
oh yeah.
and him walking in with both your second daughter. I know I'm drawing a blank because you have four of them.
Changing a diaper. It'd be
in between spots.
Oh yeah, finish a Widowmaker with like when we were trying to do 500 for 20. That was like a goal for a while. You finish that, and you're like an AFib. You're nearly dying, and then the daycare would come over and be like, we got a poopy diaper. Can you help us?
We're just laughing like, have fun with that, No, that's good stuff. I mean, I think it's important though for people out there to hear that, because there's so many, some people have these limiting beliefs as well, right? Like where I can't do it because I can't. It's like you were in a firehouse, away
Okay,
from
well,
home.
tell them what firehouse, how busy was your
Yeah, I turned pro. I work in the busiest ambulance in the city of Dallas. So, I mean, we would average probably between 18 and 22 calls multiple times. You're making 24, 25 calls in a shift,
Wow.
never, ever hitting the bed at night kind of thing. I mean, there's times I remember driving home and falling asleep, like during the middle of prep. And at the time, I remember because I was the first year I did the USAs. I was working with Art Atwood, and first year I was working worked with Art going into nationals, and then I went and worked with him going into the USAs. But he was big on keto, and he was like the protein like from chicken or fish and just like walnuts, and that's really all I ate. And it was terrible. You got bone shredded on it, but your energy levels were just in the tank. And having to work the demand and the stress and everything, it definitely made me learn to not have excuses, and that I could operate under stress. And I kind of learned to operate better under stress. Like if I'm just sitting around doing nothing at home and during prep or something, I'm like, all right, I got to do something, or I got, I get kind of anxious now. But for me, I liked being busy. I realized it did help me, maybe not to my advantage with sleeping and energy deprivation, the sleep deprivation, all that kind of stuff. But I think for teaching me that I can push myself farther than I think I can. I think that's one of the parts of bodybuilding, that if you can grasp that and handle pain and handle being tired and not wanting to do it, but doing it anyway, doing those things is what's going to bring success.
Yeah, I think a lot of times too, you hear people talk about people who don't maybe know so much of how to accomplish great things. They talk about motivation, and then those who are coaching those to create great things, they'll say, motivation comes second, right? It's really the discipline. So the discipline is to start, right? Like, what could you share a little bit about your mindset, if you can go back to that time in life of like, how did you stay disciplined and on track? What things kind of help fuel you, or any just talk through that a little bit.
I think it was always, there's a few aspects to motivation I think that you can harness. For me, I'm just going to do it guy. Like I don't need to have motivation. Like I'm very self-motivated. Sometimes you could find motivation in people saying like, you can't do that. Or, you find that the doubters or the haters that you're like, I'm going to prove their ass wrong kind of thing. Right. So there's some motivation there, because at the time, people were, you have your fans and you have your haters, and there's some people say it's like 5%, but in bodybuilding it's like 50-50. You have 50% fans, 50% haters, and the more success you have, and it really, you can see it in any sport, the more haters you end up seeming to have, because people want to see the top guys fail or whatever, which is crazy. But where were we going with that?
I want to look. Steve was always like, just like the couple unique things. Well, one, Steve kind of taught me that you don't have to lose strength in prep. Because Steve didn't know anything about prep. When you know too much, you let it happen. And so we're doing our first prep, I think, for the capital city, and and I'm losing strength, getting weak, and Steve's not. And I'm like, I don't know if I asked him or he just didn't know he was supposed to. so he just didn't, no carbs, 2 hours of cardio, and just not. So I was like, wow, I learned a new thing. It's like how many things are just mental. And then the other thing, because I like to train hard, and I thought I trained hard. And Steve would just piss me off, because I'd be pacing the house and getting fired up for our workouts, which were rough. Steve would come in with his hair done, frosted tips, looking
all clean.
Oh yeah. And he would just walk in and just be an animal, It's like, 500 for 20 on squats, or deadlifting 675, and then he'd be giggling, laughing, telling some joke, and then get under the bar. and then go back to giggling after, and then and you never get out of breath either.
I do remember one thing. I do remember those giant ass hamstrings in his squat depth used to piss me off because I'm like, in my head, I'm like, damn it, I'm not going as deep as he is. Damn it, I'm like, maybe they won't notice. No,
that's funny, and that's true. I do remember that. I mean, I still train the same way, and Greg. If we had Greg McCoy on here, who I train with, he would be laughing right now because he's like, that's exactly Steve right now. Like we'll be talking, having a casual conversation about life, and then boom, I go, oh yeah, I got to go squat this 500 for 10 sets real quick, but I've been able to turn it on and off. I think a lot of that from athletics growing up, that competition that just kind of like ingrained in you being competitive. The want to win is another good motivation, and then like if it's something you truly want to do and you want to be successful at it and you want to have be able to make money at it and to be able to have a career of it, like you got to push yourself, because I mean there's a lot of people wanting to get to the top of that mountain and push you out, and bodybuilding is like it's like a gladiator in an arena all the time. Right. It's like, man, you got all these people watching, and it's just you, and it's gonna be you versus another guy, or you versus a bunch of guys, and it's it teaches you just a lot to be self-motivated.
Well, I want to get to the how this applies, the parallels with business, but before we do that, like I remember your mom and dad from when we were younger, met them a couple times, and I saw them recently at the Kuclo Classic here in Michigan, just bright as day, super sweet people. Very, 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 very kind. And even your mom, I remember, there were some fans that were shy to come up to you. She was like, get over here, Steven, they want a picture with you. And you're just sweet as can be. I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about, because you started off with such high expectations and the spotlight on you so young, can you talk a little bit about the role your parents played in that, and just how do they help instill you? Because I think some people think, oh, this guy is super successful. Maybe he had like a silver spoon, or, whatever the case is. Right. But it was, hardworking family, good quality people. Just kind of walk about, maybe if you could share a little bit of how they've instilled some of these characteristics in you.
Absolutely, man. Definitely came from a blue collar family. Like they have work. My dad worked 80 hours every week of me growing up. I'd see him on maybe Sunday when he'd have off work, but he was a chef and still is a chef, working at some of the premier restaurants in Detroit. My mom was a hairdresser and didn't have the best of anything, but made the best of what I had.
Sure.
And that never used as an excuse. And they were very supportive, put me in athletics. They saw a lot of potential. My dad was an athlete, and initially, he wanted to see me, pursue football or hockey at a high level. And I probably could have took hockey to a very high level, if not NHL. I had several guys I played with went to the NHL. But for me, I got the passion for training and bodybuilding, and that bug hit you. And then when it does, it's serious. But having the support system of the family was huge. Like I wasn't always trying to fight and explain, like, why am I doing this or what am I doing? Like my dad wished there was like 50 bodybuilding shows I competed in a year, because he just loves competition. He loves to see his son win. So my mom was always supportive in any way, and continues. I mean, now that I've been in the sport so long and go to the shows like the Arnold, I mean, the Arnold staff and people go up to her more than they go up to me, because they know her, and they love Mama Kook.
Sure.
She's got her own fan base, but having that is crucial. And I think as careers progress, and having support at home with friends, and then having support home with your spouse, that all makes big difference. That they understand what you're doing, and it's when you're tired and don't want to be talked to, or you don't want to go anywhere, or you just be, those things, when you can have an understanding factor to it, it makes it a lot easier to do it. And then when they're there supporting you, cheering you on, you got a huge fan base or a huge crowd with you. That's even more motivation.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
I just want Mama Kook. I remember she always had Żywiec beer. It's real Polish beer. Because I spent a semester in Poland in college, And I remember that's what everyone drank, and we fell in love with it there. And I could never find it. I mean, you can't find it. I don't know where she gets it because you can't find it anywhere. I don't know if she imports it or what. But I remember the first time we had a party over there, and there's Zivish beer, and so she was all right by me from day one there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There you go. Well, I know there's a lot of people out there interested too, because you mentioned earlier, like the up and comers, I quit my job, I did this, I did that. Obviously, we've already established that, that wasn't the case for you, and that's not something you would prescribe. Talk about how that translated into your, business successes and, what you've been up to. I mentioned at the opening of our talk here, you've been on Shark Tank, and I know you have many other things than what you had on Shark Tank, but just kind of walk through what that process has been like, and who's helped you along the way, and what you've learned.
I think one of the things I could say I attribute a lot of my business acumen and success to my move. When I moved to Texas, I surrounded myself. I was training in gyms with a lot of successful business guys, and I've seen a lot of high-level CEOs and executives that would take fitness very serious. They didn't compete, but they would work out with me sometimes. I'd work out with them, and would kind of like, hey, what do you do? And would talk to them about it, and then actually one of my best friends that's in Texas, Big Al, I met him in the gym, and he one day just kind of said something funny to me. I mean, he's about 5 foot. I'm gonna give him a little props here, maybe 5'7", and not a big guy by any means, but his heart and his personality is as big as they come. And he was, said, hey, come have lunch with me. And then from there, I had surrounded and aligned myself with a lot of amazing people that really mentored me, taught me. I saw business, how they were successful, and I learned from not only the success, but from failures. And if you can learn from other people's failures too, not only your own, which you're going to have, but I think when you can do that, you're going to have success. Alignments over thinking about what I'm going to do next. But business to me was just going to be another way of I could live the lifestyle that I want to live and pursue the career of bodybuilding. And as much as I wish, we had a sport that had contracts that were 7, 8, 9 figures like other sports. Right. It's not like that. And for me, it was just making sure that I not only set myself up for that next day, the next year, but for time after bodybuilding, because that's, I'm facing that coming up now. It's like, okay, what am I doing next going into it? I started several businesses. I remember when I first turned pro, I started printing t-shirts, and I would schlep t-shirts everywhere. I took a bag of t-shirts to Australia. I mean, all over the world, selling t-shirts and pictures, and it's what you did in bodybuilding. And there wasn't really social media or e-com like there is now. Right. But I mean, you could see the evolution of business and how to monetize things in today's day and age compared to what it was back when I started. Keeping up with it, doing more e-com eventually, and then doing other businesses like, promoting my own bodybuilding show. Just through the success I've had, I've been granted a few bodybuilding shows around the U.S. I have a Texas show, which is my big show every year in May. I'm going on my 8th or 9th year of doing that. Mm-hmm. And then I started expanding to Michigan and Wyoming, and having shows is another form of revenue. I got involved with many entrepreneur groups and ended up speaking at some, and being involved in some coaching and seeing, just how the alignments and people that I've become friends with and do life with have really expanded and allowed me to just have several streams of revenue, several businesses I've been involved in, investments, different, tech companies that I've had opportunity to be involved in. And, I'm involved in it right now. Currently, I'm involved in a organic plant-based stimulant product. It's organic. It's not a fertilizer, but whoever thought I would be involved in this? But I'm working with my friend Big Al. We're working with countries all over the world, selling a product that could help cure global starvation or global hunger, just by creating a product that is healthy, and it creates a better growing environment for plants. I partner with a friend of mine in solar energy. Just have a lot of opportunity that I got going on now. And I take everything in. Like if it's good, I'm going to hear about it. And if it's something I feel like, I could apply some time and energy to that, it's going to be fruitful, I do it.
Yeah. I think it's important. just to identify for the listeners, I know Justin wants to get in here too on something, but the difference between like the mentee mentor relationship, like you go from being on stage, everyone's, you know, cheering your name and the trophies, the accolades, you're in the magazines, you know, everyone's asking for autographs, to where you go into another arena and you could easily puff your chest and not be humble and have this big ego, but you're like, hey, what do you do? You know, hey, can I grab lunch with you and learn a little more? And I think that's so important to, like, how do I have these real, you know, if I'm trying to learn, like, have these relationships, just to humbly ask for people to fill me in on what you're doing, be open-minded. And then also, I think just trying to help others, it sounds like, throughout your journey, without really initially expecting anything in return, and then the good things kind of come from there, right? I mean, I know,
Absolutely.
obviously, if we go full circle, you know, 20 years ago, like, you know, Justin was just helping you out, writing down some stuff, and now you're on our YouTube channel with us. So a lot of, you know, full circle. But sorry, Justin, I believe Justin was going to say something there. So.
Oh no, just something minor. I was just going to say, like, a good example, like, you can see the entrepreneurs and people with a business mindset. It's a totally different way they approach world. I mean, if you go on social media, it's all negative. I mean, open the Facebook comments to anything. You know, they do those things like Taylor Swift said blah, 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 blah. And then there'll be 37,000 comments, and every single one of them, I don't care what she has to say. You know, it's all negative. But then you watch someone like, I don't know if you still hang out with Reagan Lancaster, but if I'm ever struggling to get motivated for the day, I'll just pop open his Instagram. And it's like, it's just a totally, you know, they're always upbeat, always looking on the bright side, always looking for new paths, new avenues, always, you know. And even, you know, even when they're struggling or life's hard, and it's like kind of the old joke with, you know, with a business, it's like, yeah, start a business that when you want to work, you know, when you work 100 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours, you know.
Exactly.
But the social media, I mean, you look at any entrepreneur or business or any of those, they sound like motivational speakers on social media. And then you see like the rest of the population, and it's just all negative, you know. And it just always blows my mind that it's all right there. It's plain for you to see. I mean, everyone gets on social media. You can see the dichotomy. There's the people that bicker and bitch and complain and gripe and are unhappy and find the negative in everything. And then all these successful people who are the complete opposite, always looking to move forward, always, you know, always striving for success, always happy, always looking on the bright side. And it's you know, I think there's a couple of things that blow my mind. There's that people, it's all plain as day to see there. And then what also just never made sense to me is how any bodybuilder, if you can get on stage in shape, there's nothing else harder than that. If you can do that, yeah, there's no excuse not to be successful in all avenues of your life, because everything else is a piece of cake in comparison.